Since the Friday release of the GOP House Intel memo, Democrats and their lackeys in the lamestream media have been in overdrive, attacking on four fronts. First, they downplay the memo as a big nothing.
As the New Republic put it, quote, it would be easy to compare Nunes's memo to Geraldo Rivera opening Al Capone's vault.
I was surprised that it was such a flimsy document on its face.
The whole point here is not to be accurate. The point is to be misleading.
I don't think that there's much to the memo.
Now, for a memo that is supposedly a big dud, liberals are sure spending a lot of time trying to debunk it. Second, they charge that the memo's author, Devin Nunes, is a really bad actor. And did you know he's colluding with the White House?
I think the president was crystal clear, and I think that especially Chairman Nunes is doing his bidding.
I believe that this White House worked with Chairman Nunes to concoct this idea.
I think it's very possible the staff worked with the White House and coordinated the whole effort with the White House.
Now, that's a nice dodge. I love how they're trying to suggest that the memo is politically motivated while ignoring the facts in the memo that demonstrate that the entire Russia investigation was politically motivated from its inception. Devin Nunes' work to ensure the integrity of both the Clinton and the Mueller investigations should be welcomed by all Americans, whatever your political persuasion. And I'll tell you why. Because no one should be able to abuse or excuse the rule of law for political reasons. Governments cannot be allowed to target their political enemies. Well, they do it, though, don't they? In China and North Korea, and you bet, in Russia. My question is, what happened to accountability, holding government accountable? Third, the Democrats claim that Trump is going to use the memo to stop the Russia investigation and maybe even fire Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, setting up a constitutional crisis.
If Rod Rosenstein was fired, could that trigger the worst constitutional crisis since President Nixon's Saturday Night Massacre?
If the president uses this fake, horrible release of distorted intelligence as an excuse to fire Acting Attorney General Rosenstein or Mueller, it could lead to a constitutional crisis.
I'll just tell you, this could precipitate a constitutional crisis.
I know there'd be a tremendous outcry. I know there'd be a constitutional crisis.
I mean, this redefines echo chamber, takes it to a new level. They pass around a memo in the morning. Okay, we're going to say cherry picked one day, then we're going to go to constitutional crisis. Oh, my God. I say, kids, take it easy. There's no evidence that Donald Trump is going to fire Rosenstein, despite, and I understand it, his displeasure with some of Rosenstein's stupid decisions, including signing off on one of those warrants to surveil Carter Page. But for just a moment, let's accept their silly scenario. Now, the firing of Rosenstein may trigger a political fracas, and maybe it would be unwise. I wouldn't do it. But the president surely has the constitutional authority to fire anyone in the executive branch. So I fail to exactly see how this would trigger a constitutional crisis. Finally, the Democrats insist that with the release of this memo, Trump and Nunes are putting the future of the entire FBI in jeopardy.
Trying to undermine the FBI and the Department of Justice is really not in the best interests of America.
The goal here is to undermine the FBI, discredit the FBI, discredit the Mueller investigation, do the president's bidding.
This is a war on law. This is a war on justice. This is a war on the Justice Department. This is a war on the FBI.
Well, it's also a war on understatement, Joe. Now, who is carrying out a war against the reputation, integrity of the FBI, if anyone did? Well, I'd say it's former Obama AG Loretta Lynch, former Obama FBI Director Jim Comey, and former Obama Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who waged war on the FBI by damaging its reputation. Now, how did they do that? Well, they put the FBI's future in jeopardy by eroding confidence in one of our treasured law enforcement institutions, because you cannot start spying on an American citizen as some kind of insurance policy against a presidential candidate you don't happen to like. In fact, you cannot surveil an American citizen based on falsified evidence at all, or by omitting a material fact in a FISA application for a warrant. But I'll tell you, the left just refuses to address the central point of the Nunes House Intel memo. I was thinking about this earlier today when I was hosting my radio show. Remember when Democrats used to care about protecting American civil liberties? Post 9/11, the ACLU warned about various ways the Bush administration was endangering the Bill of Rights. They warned about the Patriot Act and the growing surveillance society. By the way, I agree. And they sounded alarms over the weakening of the Freedom of Information Act by reclassifying documents as unclassified but sensitive. And the liberals even complained, and some other civil libertarians, about the fairness of these long no-fly lists. But this is my favorite part of this ACLU list of grievances, was number 8. Political spying. It was called political spying. Government agencies, including the FBI and the Department of Defense, have conducted their own spying on innocent and law-abiding Americans. Through the Freedom of Information Act, the ACLU learned the FBI had been consistently monitoring peaceful groups such as Quakers, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, Greenpeace, and the Arab American Anti-Defamation Committee, and indeed the ACLU itself. Well, PETA got surveilled, apparently, but I guess Carter Page and the Trump campaign just don't qualify for Fourth Amendment protections. The ACLU has been kind of silent. Now, there was a time when Democrats cared about things like FISA court abuses.
The FISA court process is one of the most one-sided approaches in American government. I know of no other court that doesn't have some kind of adversarial discussion where there are two points of view.
There should be some adversarial process, challenging it, questioning it, just as we do in the normal court.
The opinions themselves will benefit by having an adversarial process in key cases where the court has the benefit of hearing the other side, of seeing opposing case law.
Oh my gosh, my producer just said in my ear, look, he was on RT TV. Did you see that? That's great. Well, so they were all worried. Look at what could happen with the FISA court. But now, however, FISA is beyond reproach as long as it's used toward the ever-noble goal of destroying Donald Trump, or preventing him back then of being president at all. Today on my radio show, Newt Gingrich agreed that a criminal investigation should be undertaken to discover how the FBI purposely misled the FISA court and may have obstructed justice in the Hillary email investigation.
I want to emphasize this. 98% of all FBI agents are honest, patriotic Americans trying to enforce the law, but they are tainted by the people at the very top who clearly were corrupt and were clearly violating the law. This will lead to a criminal investigation, and frankly, I don't understand why the Attorney General has not taken steps.
That's a great question. The question is, with Rod Rosenstein and as Deputy AG, could there ever really be a special counsel appointed to explore any of this? Or will it be up to Congress to find all the relevant documents and force his hand? Whatever happens, there is no doubt about the following. After all their years of claiming to be advocates for fairness and civil liberties, the Dems have been outed as frauds of the worst order. And that's the angle.